has indicated it has an agreement with the independent power producers over the debt it owes them. But questions have been raised about the sustainability of this approach by the ECG and by extension government. Stay with us. We're getting to all of that here on Ghana Tonight. Also, this evening, the half-year performance of the city shows a little over 10% decline in the value of the city against the major trading currencies, as published by Bloomberg earlier today. We'll tell you how the economists are forecasting the next 6 months or the next half of the year, how the city will perform, bearing in mind the fact that we have not been paying our external debt, both principal and interest, the dollar denominated. And that's where the analysts are raising concerns that if we start paying, how will that impact on the performance of the city? Stay with me. We have a lot more coming up on this. As always, we're very, very interactive here on Ghana Tonight. Let's get connected. The hashtag is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and Twitter. Let's get talking. Let's settle for Ghana Briefs.
The Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Alfred Ocansey, has described consistent commentary in the ongoing criminal trial of Asin North MP James Gyakye as unhealthy. He argues that high-ranking individuals' comments could impact the trial and undermine justice administration.
I'm not going to comment on it right now. I'll come up with a proper statement on the matter, and it will be in respect of all comments generally which have the tendency to subvert the administration of justice. I think that is very unhealthy for our democratic dispensation, and therefore we must not countenance.
A breach in protocol or a deliberate attempt to disrupt the address of NPP flag bearer Alan Kyerematen at a recent rally in Asin North constituency has been alleged. Vice President Dr. Bawumia, another flag bearer hopeful, was ushered in as Alan Kyerematen was delivering his speech. The former Trade and Industry Minister declined to comment after going through the party's vetting process.
Not heard from you on the Asin North incident. Can you get a quick reaction on that?
Thank you. Hold it.
The Ghana National Association of Teachers has called on Deputy Minister of Education Gift Chum Ampofo to retract her accusations against teachers after she blamed teachers for the country's economic woes.
You have the statistics. Whether capitation grant has been paid or not, you know. You know the difficulties that we are being confronted with, feeding and all those things. So you don't do a U-turn and go and say that, blame the ministry where you are coming from. That is what you are saying.
Director of the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, Professor Peter Korte, says the Ghanaian economy may record modest growth in the second quarter of 2023. According to the economists, although the general macroeconomic indicators have not been favorable within the period, the services sector will most likely record the highest growth.
Certainly going to see industry grow if possible, but not as much as services would grow. Given the debt exchange program and given the economic environment, you see the financial sector struggling, but other services will certainly pick up.
Well, you can make some time and visit 3news.com. You can find some more news there. This is Ghana Tonight. But coming up next, we get into the issues this evening as the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Alfred Ocansey, has described consistent commentary on the ongoing criminal trial of Asin North Member of Parliament James Gyakye as unhealthy. We'll get into that shortly here on Ghana Tonight, and matters arising, especially after the statement by the Domahin. Let's start from that point, shall we? Now, this is where All the reactions are coming through now after the Domahin Osajefo Osiadio Ajimambedu II, who is also put on record, a High Court judge, appealed to the Attorney General and by extension the President to discontinue or file a nolle prosequi of the case involving James Atekwesin and the criminal charges that he is facing. Indeed, after this statement, there's been some reactions to it, but for the uninitiated, let's take a listen to the Domahin and the specific statement that he made concerning James Atekwesin's case. Take a look.
Namo Mesra and the Attorney General of Ghana. Emraman Kwame say, Adiabi Ekoso na Oshe Ghana for any Jenima Otimia Uchaso. Nano asino beye se papa no betwa na konyanum so onya MPB onu bankoto foforo batoma na na se banto amano banto amano anya overwhelming majority no nyae 57.56 oya bibi ketwa wa batum. As a matter of urgency, I'm appealing to the President of the Attorney General, President of the Republic, if he has any role to play, that trial should be aborted. The Attorney General should, as a matter of urgency, file a nolle prosequi to end that particular decision. Sir, make a way because that was what. Ye did the Ghana for attempt. Ye did the ascent of for attempt. No cranny, some engineer, me who sabi. Mpaswobia e de bebra Ghana said damfo no ye be kwa prosecute no na sa wode ne gina court a na bato amani MP adwuma no obere na kwakoyo ankoyo amaya nsha mra papa amasa bi Ghana for enye adwuma amampuntu akwa na obetima blame no it's on this day na me catch say Samre you are president you know I love you. This matter cannot go on. Attorney General, Odame, prayer the share, not the share, Shawumum, Coco Chasem, if you are him as Ghana.
So that's it right there, and that's the part that pertains to James Atekwesin case. That's the Domahin Osajefo Osiadio Ajimambedu II. Now, after this, a number of reactions to it. The Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, in fact, the Majority Leader in Parliament, Osechi Mensah-Bonsu, had a few thoughts to share on this as well. Take a look. This is what he said. And shortly I'll be joined by Professor Kojo Apieje Etia on this. He says that Domahene is a respected chief and a distinguished judge. As such, his comments are not ordinary. But I must say that he says he disagrees with him on the call to drop Atekwesin's case. Osechi Mensah-Bonsu goes on to say that we're talking about constitutional matters here. Is it the case of the chief that he would call for same to be discontinued if it was a case of murder? It goes on and on, and it says as an appeals court judge, in fact, what we learned is a high court judge, rather. He is a potential candidate to the Supreme Court. Comments like this might haunt and affect the chance when posed to him at the vetting. Says he disagrees with him, essentially giving details of why he disagrees with the Domahin on this matter. But really, did the Domahin go outside of the remit of the law in expressing his opinion about this matter, and then also taking into consideration the fact that he is a High Court judge himself? Let's go on to Zoom now. And Professor Kojo Apieje Etia is a law lecturer at the University of Ghana Law School, connecting with us. Professor Etia, thank you so much for joining us on Ghana Tonight. But let's first of all start off with the basis of some clarity here. The power to file a nolle prosequi, can the Attorney General exercise this power in every circumstance, or there are certain exceptions to the rule?
Well, the Attorney General is given the power under the Constitution to prosecute cases solely under his mandates, under Article 88. Of course, he can delegate that powers. And the rules also allow him, under the Criminal Procedure act to call of a case, and that is what is meant by nolle prosequi. So it simply is a Latin term meaning that no more interested in pursuing or prosecuting.
So it is indeed the case that in the specific case of James Jatiquation, and if you listen to the Domain, he contextualizes his call in the specific realm of the sentiments of the Ghanaian people and the fact that if you look at the impact of this, if there has to be another ruling on this matter, there's a by-election goes back and forth, he would not be able to serve his people well. The Attorney General can exercise that authority to file a nolle prosequi in this case if he so wish, correct?
It is in the sole discretion of the Attorney General to determine whether to issue a nolle prosequi. And when that decision is taken, he's not supposed to even give a reason for why he's discontinuing the case. Of course, but there have been the argument in a case or two that it has to be subject to the rule of exercise of discretionary powers, but it's solely within his mandate to do that. And looking at the advice or point made that he should discontinue the case or apply for nolle prosequi, it is entirely up to him to make that decision. He cannot be compelled to do that.
In fact, if you listen to the Domain's tape, I played almost a full portion of that statement that he made. That appeal kept going back to the point about how this impacts on the people of Asin North. When you listen to him, he makes the point about this by-election and the fact that even regardless of everything that's going on, James Jatiquation won with a landslide victory. And that is an affirmation of the Asin North people's faith and support for him. That's the context that the Domain makes this appeal to the Attorney General and the President. Can that be considered in any way?
In my opinion, yes. In my opinion, yes, because there seems to be the general sentiment that the case, the Attorney General is not being fair or is not properly positioned as an independent, neutral person, as the Attorney General of the Republic in taking up the case. For example, if you look at the comments made by the Deputy Attorney General in court, that it was irresponsible on the part of James Jatiquation to contest the position, since it's likely that he may face the prisons. So certainly it has been colored politically, and probably that is where the Domain, who also doubles as a High Court judge, is coming from, and saying that. And also, for example, if you look at the fact that the case was to be tried on a daily basis, I don't even know if that position has been varied yet, which was to sort of put impediments in his way in prosecuting, in going to court. So in all of this, that challenge, that issue has arisen about the fact that the case seems to have been politically affected in that regard. And so, in my opinion, for that matter, if the people have voted largely by a landslide to say that this is a person we want, and they're also looking at the fact that the issue of prosecution, there's not a case of a harm being caused to anybody here. And the fact that even the Electoral Commission cleared him, and later on there was this issue about the fact that he lied to the people, and therefore that's why the case has been brought against him. It raises questions where there doesn't seem to be fairness being applied to James Jatiquation. And for that matter, I think that it would have been, or it would be in the best interest of justice and for the people of Asin North to be given the opportunity to have somebody to represent them, already considering the fact that there was also some concern raised about the fact that if his name is expunged from the records and he's prevented from serving the people, it would cause a gap in the ability of the people to have representation in Parliament. And that went on for a couple of months. And so if this case is continued and he is also is sent to prison, if he's convicted, then it's going to create a further gap. But meanwhile, this problem, there's a way to resolve it. And so in that sense, the advice or comment made by the Domahene seems fair, that it can be made. It's a comment that I think will be considered as fair comment.
Right. Professor Chair, you said this comment by the Domahene is a fair comment, which can be made, but this is the response of the Attorney General to the comment by the Domahene. Take a look.
Justice. I'm not going to comment on it right now. I'll come up with a proper statement on the matter, and it will be in respect of all comments generally which have the tendency to subvert the administration of justice. I think that is very unhealthy for our democratic dispensation, and therefore we must not countenance it.
Lawyers of Jachikwe's have filed an appeal against the ruling of an Accra High Court.
That's the Attorney General's verdict on this. Professor Chair, you described the Domahene statement as a fair comment, which he can make, bearing in mind that he's a High Court judge. The Attorney General says that this is an unhealthy comment. Now, you are a law professor. Looking at the remits of the law, does this statement impact on the case in any way, shape, or form?
Well, if it is an advice, well, I think that, you see, one problem with the statement is the fact that it is coming from a High Court judge. And secondly, the forum in which it was made, where it was an NDC forum. And so the argument that, for example, whether he's not acting politically, that issue can also be raised. And if it is a judge also, there is some, there's no clear violation of any of the ethics of the bench. Because if you look at the procedures outlined in the disciplinary committee of the Judicial Council, there is no clear violation of what the High Court judge said, who is also the Domahene. So it is difficult to pinpoint him to any particular fault. But I think it's about the circumstances under which the statement and where the statement was made. If it is an advice, there's nothing wrong with that. It is up to the Attorney General to take it or leave it. Probably some would have suggested that it have been made in private. But we also know the Domahene's position, or generally his posture on certain issues in the country. He speaks where he thinks he thinks the truth should be, or where his mind directs him to make any comment, which doesn't seem to portray him as siding with any particular political party. He has sung the praise of Nana Akufo-Addo in certain instances, and where he's also not going, feels that he's not going right. He has commented on it. He has commented on the gay rights issues and so on. So I think that probably that is the context in which we should see his comments and not see it as something that is negative. And again, it is up to the Attorney General to decide to accept it or not to take it. But I think having been made in public, it's very unlikely the Attorney General is going to accept it.
Prof, I thank you. So takeaways, indeed, it's the venue that you put this to, but essentially your general analysis of this is that there's no clear violation of the law by this statement that the Domahene has made, and it is a fair comment, and taking into consideration what the Attorney General's response is as well. But thank you so much for your time here on Ghana Tonight. That's the law professor, Professor Appiah Etua. He's a professor of law at the University of Ghana Law School, and then also a human rights lawyer, sharing his thoughts with us on this particular statement by the Domahene and then also the reactions by the Attorney General and whether there has been any violation of the legal principles by this statement. But there are a number of things happened in court earlier today. Quite apart from the Attorney General's response to this statement, which was out of the courtroom, there was a case in court which is of principal interest. That's Dr. Stephen Oponi's case, and our court correspondent, Lord Eduasari, is joining me in studio for a quick one on this. Lord, what do we know about it? What happened in court today?
So, Alfred, you recall or recollect that the Oponi case has been on for about 5 years, give or take. It started in March. Somewhere, if you add up, right, March 2023 was the 5th year, okay, right from March 2018. Okay, now when this case started, Justice Onyenuga was the one who sat on it.
Right.
Back to March, when he retired, a new judge was put on, Justice Anoche Jima, and he essentially, when was going on with the trial, and he asked the prosecution to file the CMC, okay, and the prosecution had indicated that they were beginning to have challenges because of the time that was involved. Some of the witnesses that were supposed to be called for the case had retired, and so they're having, some of them didn't want to testify anymore. So as at the time when this was being called, this was in April, right?
Right.
They were having challenges getting the witnesses to speak. Now, this has been going on, as far as the Court of Appeals case is concerned, has been going on for a while, because Justice Jima stated in April, right, that they are going to restart the case because of certain allegations that were involved in the case. He knows that it will be unfair.
I see. So this new judge, actually, that's Justice Kwesi Jima, and in a bit we're going to find out a brief detail about this Justice Kwesi Jima, because we're monitoring some media reports that he has been transferred to Kumasi of this case, and there's a new judge.
Yes.
There's a new judge on this case.
So the interesting bit too is that prior to his transfer, the case was supposed to have resumed on July 12th. But with this transfer now, we do not know when the next sitting is going to be. So we just have to be monitoring what is going to come of that. But at the Court of Appeal today, there was an overturn, right, on the ruling by Justice Jima.
I see. So Justice Jima ruled that this case should to start afresh.
Indeed.
All over again. Just Dr. Oponi's case.
Yes. And
there's been a new ruling on his ruling.
Exactly.
What is it?
I'd like to read a bit of that. So it was a 3-member panel, okay, by Justice Philip Bright Mensah, as well as Justices Jennifer Dadzi and Dr. Ernest Osudapa. Now, they ruled that, this is, I'm going to quote them. It says, "We are persuaded the lower court misdirected itself and came to a wrong conclusion on the case," which is the Oponi case, right? "The decision of the High Court is referred to this court and appeal is allowed in its entirety. The application for the judge to adopt previous proceedings is granted. The proceedings of the previous courts presided over by Justice Onyenuga are to be adopted by the High Courts differently constituted. The registrar is ordered accordingly." Now, Fred, I must note that even before after the Attorney General filed an appeal against Dr. Jima's ruling, lawyers for Dr. Oponi also noted that they were against the appeal because they were also going with the ruling of the Justice Jima that they expected it to start afresh. Okay, but essentially the Court of Appeal went with what the Attorney General has cited, and that's why they overturned the ruling by the High Court.
Let's see the Attorney General's defense on this, reason why it opposed the fresh start of Dr. Oponi's case. It says the ruling of the court was contrary to the principles of the fair trial contained in Article 19 of the 1992 Constitution, and as decided by the Supreme Court in Republic versus, it goes on, Eugene Bafuboni. Now, the trial judge misdirected himself in the application of the principles regarding the adoption of evidence in a trial. That was the position of the Attorney General against this decision by Justice Kwesi Jima for this Dr. Stephen Oponi case to start all over again.
Indeed.
I see. So what are we learning about His Lordship Justice Kwesi Jima? What have we been reading so far?
Well, I mean, that's what you indicated. He's someone who has got some strong views on some of these cases. A lot of people have given him plaudits for the way he handles cases. And so this new development, as I should say, comes as a quite surprised that he has been transferred. So we'll see how the coming days will look like in this regard.
Indeed. So these are the reports that we're monitoring, that this Justice Kwesi Gyimah, who actually ruled that Dr. Stephen Opuni's case be started all over again after 5 years, has been transferred. In fact, we're knocking on the doors of a few courts to get a bit more detail on this, but it's actually been published far and wide. This is what we know, a brief about this Justice Gyimah we're talking about. This is it. That is a holder of a Master of Law degree in International Criminal Justice and Armed Conflict from the University of Nottingham in Britain. Was a law lecturer in the Faculty of Law at the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, GIMPA, where he taught mainly the law of immovable property. At least gives us an idea of this person and who we're dealing with. Lord, appreciate your time. And in fact, we also do know that Justice Kwesi Gyimah took over the case in March 2023 and ruled that the Stephen Opuni trial be restarted.
Indeed.
For being tainted with allegations of unfairness. We'll see how things play out. Lord Eduasari, thank you so much.
Thank you.
He's a law and court correspondent. This is Ghana Tonight. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly after this quick break. And right after this quick break, what we're getting into, we're monitoring reports from Bloomberg about the performance of the city. Coming up next, despite ending the first half of the year with a better performance, as compared to last year, the city has been classified as one of the worst performing currencies by Bloomberg. We'll tell you exactly what the details are after this quick break. Stay with us. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to demonstrate to you the superior properties of Flamingo paint as compared to other paint brands on the market. We take equal quantities of Flamingo paint and this ordinary paint. We then dilute them with water. And now, let the test begin. The gentleman on the left is going to apply the ordinary paint, and the gentleman on my right will use the Flamingo superior paint. As you can clearly see, Flamingo has the obvious better hiding. Furthermore, Flamingo has painted a much larger area. You know, one bucket of Flamingo paint is equal to several buckets of any other paint brand on the market. Flamingo paint is made with superior formulation to give superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage. Flamingo paint, simply superior.
Everybody knows Acrobato. And if you know Acrobato, it means you know M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic is my pillar. Let's hear what others are saying about M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. Who will be careful M-Punch one?
Just na me ankasa me period na say problems wom ntina ma wo ho idea ma me papa just na nya asem ketewa na me coin point no mo hwe me mogam no mo hwe bibia na so mo meduro a me fae no ene ma won kra mienu kofro kwa na mkwan mu a eba
head everything yourself
me ma me no adwodwo eda ho a wontumi nante ene ne ko end point o mama no nura ene ne ho idea watimi asori anante.
That's end point for you of Acrobato. Hello hey ohwehwe what che okay a free bra wo di end point wa dance am me call you no me Johnson se man enkoyie e person na my emre nyina na magina sebema na me be fie for there e ho na nyina jaresa. You heard everything. I have secret. M-Punch is my secret. M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. I'm free.
Hello. Have you heard of the Franco air condition specially made to fit the Ghanaian weather? It has authentic capabilities, which is the original sizes ranging from the 1.5 horsepower, 2.0 horsepower, and the 2.5 horsepower. So if you are looking for an air condition to fit your homes, offices, schools, hotels, apartments, churches, it's Franco Trading Enterprise. For bulk purchases, look no further than Franco Trading Enterprise. Franco Trading Enterprise, the home of quality air conditioning.
Ready, set, go! 3FM Baby Fair is here.
Parents, make it a family affair with fun photo booth for family shoots, kids arena for the kids to have fun, and so much excitement.
This fair will be a one-stop shop for all childcare products, clothes, toys, child development products, and so much more for every child of every age.
3FM Baby Fair on the 7th July, 8th July, and 9th July 2023 at Marina Mall, Airport City, Accra.
To be a part of the fair and exhibit your products and services as a vendor, please call
0244 405027 right now.
The 3FM Baby Fair, your one-stop shop for all your childcare products. The 3FM Baby Fair is proudly brought to you by Marina Mall. 3FM, your urban lifestyle radio.
Kitchen Wars.
The most anticipated cooking reality show is making its return to your screen. It is Kitchen Wars Season 2. Old school alumni get ready to compete for yet another epic showdown. Which alumni will take over from WAS?
The school that came in first place, West Africa!
Get your ladles out, sharpen your knives, and be ready to battle it out. Interested alumni must be in a group of 6 to participate. Simply send your details 0531 906 281 to register and stand the chance of being the best alumni in the kitchen. It's Kitchen Wars Season 2. Kitchen Wars, your school feed cook. Kitchen Wars.
Kitchen Wars, coming soon on TV3.
Brought to you by Gino Tomato Mix.
And Napa Foods, say Napa, enye ono soko.
Welcome back. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. The city ended the first half of the year, that's this year, 2023, with a better performance, as a matter of fact, than same period last year, if you do the year-on-year analysis. According to Bloomberg, the city lost about 11.21% to the dollar, but yet was still classified amongst Africa's worst performing currencies when it comes to the worst spot returns. And stay with me, I'm going to give you details of what the worst spot returns really means. But this is a wrap of the report by Bloomberg earlier today.
On the interbank market, the Bank of Ghana put the year-to-date loss of the cedi to the dollar to about 20%. Presently, the Ghanaian currency is going for 11 cedi 68 pesos to the dollar in the retail market. The Bank of Ghana is, however, quoting $1 to 10 cedis, 99 pesos. In the last 3 months, the cedi had performed well against the US dollar. Prior to the announcement of an International Monetary Fund program and after the pronouncement, the cedi has kept its resilience against the American greenback. It has gained about 9% on the retail market since the announcement of the IMF program. However, some market watchers argue that the local currency benefited from the suspension of payments of principal and interest on external debt in December 2022. Last week, reports indicated that demand pressures for the American greenback eased, favoring the cedi. This may continue this week, all things being equal.
Well, so a bit more detail. This is what Bloomberg published on its Bloomberg terminal. The good performance, the first 10 best performing currencies as per Bloomberg's monitoring. Today, take a look. And this is in the order of descendancy. So from the best performing currencies and the worst. In fact, we're going to get into the details of it, but as you see now today, this is how much the dollar is selling for. 11 cedis, 85 pesos. And then also, if you go on to the pound and the euro, which I'm sure I'm going to show it to you eventually as we go on, but this is it. This is how they classified the currencies and the specific countries and how they're doing with respect to their ranking. This is what Bloomberg published earlier. This is it. The best spot returns. Zambia, the Zambian kwacha, is actually number one comparatively between January and June 2023, and followed by the Gambian dalasi, and then the Ugandan shilling, number 3, the Guinean franc, and the Djibouti franc follows in that order. The Somalian shilling is actually being classified by Bloomberg as one of the currencies with the best spot returns. And a lot has been happening in Somalia, a war-torn country, but they've done quite a lot in terms of reforms. And also the Sierra Leone leon. The currency of Sierra Leone is leon, and they follow in that order as well. These are the countries with the worst spot returns. Ghana comes first because in terms of the comparative analysis with the other countries below, Ghana's depreciation of the cedi is not as worse as that of Congo. In fact, Nigeria has the worst situation. We saw the depreciation of the naira by almost over 39% within the first half of the year. So they put Ghana there as number 1. But comparatively with Togo, we are quite well. So the Congolese franc comes next, the Kenyan shilling follows, Liberian dollar follows, the Egyptian pound, the Angolan kwanza, and the naira follows in that order. The countries with the worst spot of returns. Let's go on to the telephone now. Professor John Gachi is a dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School and then also an economist. Professor Gachi, thank you so much for joining us on Ghana Tonight. Now, we saw the cedi do quite well, a bit stable in the first quarter of the year. What may have contributed to this decline that we're seeing Bloomberg reporting?
Well, I think we have not changed the description of the performance of our currency. We largely indicate that our cedi is a depreciating currency because the factors that contribute to depreciation have not changed over time. But the turnaround of our currency being described as performing well is due to a number of factors. Number 1, the echoes of an IMF engagement is 1. Number 2, the rationalization we have given to our importers, for which some of them do not have readily available currency to pay for import or to deal with their import is 1. And generally, over some period of time, demand for import has actually slowed down. So these factors put together contribute to the health of the cedi. But when we are talking about the stability of the cedi, it's a relative term. Number 1, with reference to which point in time, and with reference to whose assessment. Because if you are changing the currency over some time of, let's say, 6 cedis, and it's now at 11 cedis, 50 pesos, or 12 cedis, 50 pesos, that does not mean that in relative terms, the cost that the cedi produce for the importers and the effect on pricing has changed. So this stability we're talking about, it only means when we observe the cedi over a period of time, this period, the depreciation seems to be slow, and then intermittently we have some appreciation. That is what we are describing. But in terms of contributing to cost structure of importers and then the build-up of prices in the country, the effect has not changed. And that is why you see prices of items still very high because of the weight of the effect on prices. And to me, that should be what we should be working at. So this situation where the currency stabilizes around some high level of exchange, just because at that point, it's not volatile as it used to be, and we celebrate that. It's a misleading situation when it comes to pricing, when it comes to the effect on cost structure of importers.
you talk about how this is impacting on prices of goods and services, essentially because for the ordinary man, the decline or appreciation of the cedi will be measured by how that impacts on how much he or she is going to buy an item for. But we have not been servicing our external debts, both principal and interest. In the next half of the year, is there a probability that we will start? And if we do, how will that impact on the performance of the cedi?
Well, again, you need to observe the currency after the end of the year, because initially when we started running the economy, the assumption is that we will not pay any part of our debt, but that has been restructured, that we are going to pay some part of our debt to the bondholders in particular. I think 5% thereof, something like that. And next year we will pay. The next 2 years we will pay part. So the situation will change. But we will see the true effect of the resilience of the cedi going to the close of the year, close of this year. That's when we will see whether we are resilient. This we are only talking about some momentary relief of the currency for the country. Those extreme volatility have been taken away. But when we resume proper servicing of our debt, that will have a toll on us, and that will be reflected in the depreciation.
Now, we're seeing the second round of the domestic debt exchange program as well playing out with the cocoa bills and the dollar-denominated local debts. Also, some agreements with the banks, we understand, have been reached. Will that also impact on the cedi in the next half, the next half of the year as we have entered into it?
Well, I'm sure not all the parts of the second round of the domestic debt exchange have been concluded. I do know that those relating to dollar-denominated domestic debt will be restructured, that of cocoa bills, but I think the chunk of the pension funds, we have not heard any conclusion on that. So I still believe that there are factors that weigh against even this prospect for the economy. I think this prospect for the economy largely want to upload the balance sheet of the country to be somehow less weightier in terms of fiscal management. But for fiscal management to contribute to controlling depreciation, you will need to see other factors, whether we are going to open up to higher import bills of the country, whether that will come on board,
right,
to take away the effect of the gain. So that's what I say. We got to wait to the end of the year so that we see how the adjustment process will conclude.
And quick one, are there any specific interventions you expect in the upcoming mid-year budget review that could possibly impact on the performance of the cedi positively as we do the outlook?
I believe for now, the activities that should be done before the review are themselves the interventions that ought to take place. So, for example, the second round debt exchange program that we have seen will be one of the effects already. So I do not expect any other clear intervention from anywhere for the cedi. But these interventions are supposed to cool down the contributing factors to fiscal runoff and then to depreciation of the currency.
Appreciate your time. Professor John Gachi, thank you so much. He's a Dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School and also a financial analyst there, Professor John Gachi. Now, coming up next, we stay with the issues of the economy, but this time to the energy sector, because the Managing Director of the Electricity Company of Ghana, Samuel Jubik Mahama. He's been speaking after their meeting with the independent power producers and also the agreement that they reached with them. Details coming up shortly. Until the last hours of, that's June 30 on Friday, the independent power producers had resolved to go ahead with their decision to unplug or not contribute any power to the national grid. An agreement to ring-fence the various debts of the various independent power producers has been reached. That's according to the Managing Director of the Electricity Company of Ghana, Samuel Jubik Mahama. I spoke to him earlier, and he gave details about this arrangement or the agreement they have, which has led to some grace period for ECG to come up with the money to pay the 30% of the almost $2 billion they owe the IPPs. Take a look.
One of the main things that were identified yesterday was the fact that there's been no form of cohesion amongst us. One of the main things that also came out is that there are a lot of issues that one side knows, the other side doesn't know, and so brings about a lot of mistrust in the whole sector. So one of the things we agreed upon was to streamline all of those things, and then we made them an offer about ring fencing the old debt point, and then making sure that moving forward, ECG will stay current on their bills to the IPPs to make sure that there's certainty of payments. One of the big problems the country is facing is the fact that there's no certainty in the amount that people receive, at least IPPs receive in form of payments towards the power they've supplied. Electricity is actually a seasonal business because right now it's the cold season, so purchases are quite low.
Right.
So what you were receiving somewhere in November or December, it will drop drastically. So until we find a flat and good amount that would even it out for all of them, be able to receive something that their lenders can look forward to and say, this is our barest minimum to expect. But it is always a number that could be bettered. There would always be these issues of arrears because in this life, nobody is actually expected to pay off their total debt. In certain parts of the world, we all live on credit. But it depends on how expansive your credit line is. So we just need to come to a proper way of restructuring that line, and that's what we agreed on yesterday. I must be very honest, ECG had made contact with every single independent power producer. We had come up with what we wanted to and how to move forward.
Jubik Mahama is Managing Director of the Electricity Company of Ghana. Let's go on to Zoom now, and thankfully, he stayed up to connect with us. That's Member of Parliament for the Pro East constituency, a former Power Minister, Dr. Kwabena Donkor. Thank you so much for joining us on Ghana Tonight. First off, the ECG MD makes the point that we've signed agreements with these IPPs and we are consuming between 25 to 35% of the power that they provide. And the rest, according to him, even though we don't use, we still have to pay for. Is that really the case? Dr. Donkor. Hello, Dr. Can you hear me?
It's inaccurate. It is not factual.
Okay.
And almost everybody in the industry is surprised as to where he's getting his data from. The truth is that, for example, the Minister will not talk about 25 to 35% of the power generated or power contracted. Why would ECG re-sign the AXA contract when the contract expired? Why would they? If you have so much excess capacity, and the original AXA contract was a 5-year contract, emergency power, it has lapsed. Why do you renew it if you have that much excess capacity? It is totally untrue that we are only expending 25 to 35% of the power generated. No, A good example is the AXA agreement.
Right.
Another one is the Cal Power agreement, which has been extended. The agreement, would they renew the AXA agreement, which has lapsed? They wouldn't. So it is not factual.
I see. Now, right, and you make the point that it's not factual, but I mean, if you could kindly sit back for me so we have some clarity. You still maintain that this debt that the government or the ECG owes the IPPs is self-inflicted?
First of all, as we speak, I'm not convinced there's any excess capacity. There's a reserve margin.
Okay.
Let's take a football team. At any one time, 11 players are on the field.
Right.
But it's a reserve. So that when one of the plans goes down, or when there's an issue with one of the plans, then the reserve margin comes in. In Ghana, Energy Commission and Gridco, they use 18% reserve margin. In other jurisdictions, they 20%. But Gridco uses 18% reserve margin.
Okay. So
that margin is not idle capacity or it's not excess capacity. It is what you need to let the system run. As of today, our peak demand pitched against available capacity does not leave excess capacity.
I see. Now, so the payment of excess power, if you get it right, as the ECG boss is making reference, is an issue, but it's not the reason why we owe these IPPs almost $2 billion. That's what's happening.
Well, in the short term, it gives us some breathing space as a country. But there are fundamental issues. One is the instability of the currency. If we have a stable currency, it makes for programming, it makes for forecasting, it makes for planning. As long as the currency keeps on being devalued against the benchmark US dollar, there are going to be forex losses, and those forex losses will hit our ability to pay. That is one. Two, we'll have to move towards greater efficiency. If you are losing 30% of the power you buy, then of course, you will not be able to pay. Three, currently, ECG's working capital is below what is required of a utility. And therefore, the shareholder has a responsibility to inject working capital. Three, ECG must go on both a collection drive, a major collection drive, but also, more importantly, a drive to increase efficiency in its own operations and cut costs. Yes, so this is what the power sector has to do. There has to be a drive for efficiency, there has to be a drive to pay, and we have to eliminate the under-recovery.
Elimination of the under-recovery. So thank you for your time. Appreciate your time here. Dr. Kwabena Donkor, former Power Minister and also MP for Pro East. Thank you so much for joining us. And we do apologize for that hitch in the Zoom connection, but point well made. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Kwabena Donkor. Coming up next, we give you an idea of what happened at the NPP headquarters earlier today when 3 of the flag bearer aspirants went to the party as expected to face the vetting committee of the NPP. And my colleague Noble Crosby Annan was there earlier today. Take a look.
It's the end of the first day, but the beginning of a rigorous process to reduce the number of aspirants of the NPP flag bearership position from 10 to a maximum of 5. The first day of the vetting of flag bearer hopefuls of the NPP saw 3 stalwarts of the party appear before the vetting committee, which is chaired by the former Speaker of Parliament, Aaron Mike Oquaye. The first was the former Trade and Industry Minister, Alan Chimanting, who spent close to 2 hours here at the party's election and campaign office at Kokomlemle.
I've just had the opportunity of going through the vetting process for presidential aspirants for our party, and I had a good interaction with the committee. I mean, it's all about making sure that we work together as a party in our march towards victory 2024.
Beyond that was the former Trade and Industry Minister's decline to answer questions on what many believe was Vice President Dr. Bawumia gate-crashing his address at the Asin North constituency. Presidential candidate hopeful on the ticket of the New Patriotic Party, Kennedy Ejapong, as well as other party officials, allege Dr. Bawumia and his team intentionally gate-crashed Alan's speech at the party's Asin North rally.
Now, so 3 people were vetted. Let's go on to Zoom now. My colleague Noble Crosby Annan, who monitored the happenings at the NPP's headquarters the first day of vetting, is joining us. Noble, who are the persons expected to appear before the committee tomorrow?
If we're talking about what we should expect in the coming days, we know that this process is beginning today, July 3, and ending on July 6. So on Tuesday, July 4, the former Energy Minister, Boakye Jarko, and former General Secretary of the party, Kennedy Ejapong, as well as the Member of Parliament for Asin Central, Kennedy Ejapong, they will take their turn to face the committee tomorrow, July 4. It will be there to bring you all the activities that happen at the NPP office where the vetting will be held. Then on Wednesday, July 5, we'll see Dr. Kofi Konadu-Apreku, Dr. Uswe Akoto, and Joe Gate. They will appear before the vetting committee on Wednesday, July 5. Then it will be crowned on Thursday by Francis Adainimo, who will show up on Thursday, July 6, to also go through the vetting process, all in their quest to become flag bearers of the New Patriotic Party going into the 2024 general election. So after this is what we know, that, I mean, it's the beginning of the process to reduce the number of aspirants from 10 to a maximum of 5.
Appreciate your time. Noble Crosby Annan, thank you very much. So tomorrow, he is going to be at the NPP headquarters. The Professor Mike Oquaye-led vetting committee of the NPP has begun their work in earnest, and we have 10 of them, 10 people, or flag bearer hopefuls, who are expected to appear before the vetting committee of the NPP. Here are those we're talking about. I put it out there. And on Wednesday, 5th July, these are the persons who are expected to appear. And the last day, Francis Adainimo. But tomorrow, these are the 3 who are expected to appear before the committee. That's Boakye Jarko, Kwabena Ejapong, and Kennedy Ejapong as well. So we'll bring all to you here on TV3 and across all media journal platforms. On behalf of the rest of the team, thank you so much for staying with us here on Ghana Tonight. I am Alfred Ocansey. Have a great night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by
Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.